Divorce is a very difficult process, but did you know there's an app for that?
Of course there is.
So we'll be talking about that. Krista Andrews with Part Us is a developer of this new app, actually based out of North Dakota. So this will be very interesting.
Well, now.
Yeah. Also updates on tech news and net neutrality at the control panel. Producer extraordinaire Jim Walsh.
How was your weekend?
It was droney.
Droney, yes.
I was at the drone camp.
Yeah.
Up in Tioga, North Dakota.
Droning along.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a pretty good time from what I
It was a
hear.
pretty good time. You know, Saturday it rained most of the day. I don't know what
Yeah.
it was like here on Saturday, but it rained most of the day. So it dampened some of the spirits, but it was good. Sunday, yesterday they really got out and flew drones. There were drones flying all over the place up
Excellent.
there yesterday. So yeah, it was fun. The kids. It's interesting, right? They adapt to this technology pretty easily, don't they?
Oh, yeah, a lot more easily than you and I would.
Yeah, I know some of them, it's the first time that they ever flew a drone, and it just seemed like in 3 or 5 minutes they were cruising around that airport hangar with them flying.
I believe it.
Some of them took a little bit longer. You know, I think you've seen some of the footage I shot yesterday when they were starting to train on them.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny. Of course, they all wear safety glasses in this airport hangar.
Right.
Because the drones that they're flying, outside of maybe some potential eye injuries, that was probably the only thing that could possibly go wrong. I mean, if a couple of them even hit me, and you don't even notice it hardly, So,
yeah.
But it was interesting to see them, all over the place. I had to leave before they finally were to put all of them up in the air, but they were going for like 100 of them in the air at a time.
Yeah.
Outside. So that may have been even some type of record if they were doing that. So it was fun.
Well, the 1 or 2 pictures I saw that you put on social media, there was a whole bunch of them up there at once.
There was,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. It just wasn't the whole group flying at exactly the
Okay.
same time. So yeah, it was a good time. I think things like this are important. I know that the person who's behind all of that, Dennis Lindahl out of Tioga. In fact, he's been on the show a couple times. He's actually he's a talk show host up there.
Oh,
as a matter
won't
of
hold that
fact.
against
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, that's for sure. And he's also the economic development director in that area as well.
Gotcha.
And he's actually putting together tech camps for kids next year.
Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be
they're
great.
actually going to be putting together a variety of different do-it-yourself projects across the state of North Dakota for this. So they actually gave me one that they had built a Bluetooth speaker. And it works pretty slick, actually.
A flying Bluetooth speaker?
No, just a regular Bluetooth speaker, but it's in a kind of a plastic jar.
Yeah.
They built it out of a plastic jar. I may even have it in the car. Maybe during the break I'll bring it in. You can take a look
by all
at
means.
it. So that was pretty cool as well. So, but yeah, it was a great time. It was the second annual one. I know they're getting ready for next year. They're going to have 3 divisions next year. They'll have a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced.
Yeah, well, that's the way it should be.
And that way, and they'll be able to accommodate more students. I think they're only able to accommodate 100.
Now, you say students. What is the age group here?
I think it was 5th grade on up. So I'm not sure the oldest, but I'm going to say there was probably some sophomores or juniors in the group as well. But in that neighborhood, so yeah. Yep. So yeah, it should be a good thing next year, and I would certainly recommend anybody who has kids that are interested in this arena that they, as soon as that announcement is made that the drone camp is available, you need to get in right away because the thing fills up immediately.
Well, I would assume that we're going to talk about it when it comes around.
Absolutely, we will be doing that.
Fantastic.
So yeah, have you been out flying a drone yet?
Not yet.
You and I need to go and do this someday.
Yeah.
Is there something that you'd be interested in taking some footage of?
Well, I just love the idea of going up real high and just looking around.
Okay.
So I don't think I have a preference. Just the idea of being up there.
Okay.
Maybe looking at the skyline.
Sure. So have you? So you can do this with virtual reality glasses now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could we could beam the image down to you, and you could put the VR goggles on, and you could almost pretend like you were flying, Jim.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a bird?
Oh, sure.
I think that drones are probably going to be as close as we're ever going to get to that possibility, because you can actually get lost in this world. I've actually put VR goggles on a few times, and some of the higher end drones, there's a 360-degree camera. It's called a gimbal that they put on there, and then the camera will spin around as a motorized camera. So as you look and you turn or whatever, the camera follows your movements in your head.
Now, what's interesting about that to me, I've talked to people who have done it.
Okay.
And they say, like you say, you can get lost in doing it, and your nervous system after a while reacts as if you actually are doing what you're doing.
It is kind of unusual, actually, and you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, the example they give me is one of these virtual reality boxing things.
Okay.
Where you put on the boxing gloves and you put on the goggles, and the guy hits you in the face. For a split second, you actually feel like you've been hit in the face.
Interesting. I know I was in the Oculus Rift demonstration at CES earlier this year.
Oculus Rift sounds like the Transformers segment. Yeah.
They're actually it's a brand of virtual reality, and I was in this. They took me through a series of things, and we had a television crew. I should almost share this footage with you sometime.
Yeah.
They were shooting it, and you could see on the screen what I was seeing in the VR, but on a two plane, just on a television screen, right? So it wasn't 3D that you were seeing, but you could see me reacting to this stuff, right? And you could see me ducking, you could see me running, you could see me getting out of the way of things. There was a dinosaur chasing me in this thing.
Okay.
And it was a big Tyrannosaurus Rex, and he's just like chasing me, and then he comes down to grab me with his jaws, and you can see me actually taking with my hands going up in the air, right? And then all of a sudden, as I turn around to get away from him, I'm on the edge of a cliff, and you can see me actually trying to catch my balance because I thought I was going to fall off the edge of this thing.
Right.
And I'm going through the motions like I was really going to fall off.
It's amazing. Where the big opportunity in this lies, and I will not pass judgment. You know where I'm going with this.
Of course, I know where you're going.
The porn
with this.
industry.
Yes, yeah, they're pretty excited about this.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm not going to say whether it's good and bad. I'm not going to get into that today, but you know it's coming.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know right now somewhere out in Van Nuys, California, they're working on it.
Yeah, absolutely they are.
These geeks who can't get a girl any other way, And no matter how weird and how kinky you want it, you can get it probably, or you will be able to on one of these virtual. You can sit there, throw another midget in the blender. Boom, there you go. More Thousand Island dressing. Thank you.
There is this could be a whole show actually on the sexuality and the future.
Yeah, not today though.
No, we have other things. We're going into divorce today, so that's a whole unrelated kind of related topic.
And this app for getting divorced came out of North Dakota.
Out of North Dakota, yeah.
Let's hear it for promoting family values in the Peace Gardens Estate.
It's interesting, actually.
It is.
She's actually a family law attorney.
Well, I'm divorced. I'm on my second marriage.
Yeah, me too.
So it's a topic that a lot of people have to deal with.
And it's difficult. It's absolutely difficult.
It is.
So they've come up with a way that actually helps get through that process a lot easier. So after the break, we will be talking to Krista Andrews with Part Us, and she'll be talking about this new app that they're developing. So come on back.
Right now, 65.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank everybody who follows us around the country and across the country and around the world.
Thank you.
Why is it I always mess that up, Jim?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But on the Blueberry Network, on the Tech Podcast Network, if it's Tech, it's here. We're on Tuned In, Roku, Apple TV, iTunes, and of course our own app, Radio Pup. All kinds of places that you can catch the Tech Ranch live or later in case you hear something that you want to hear again. And sometimes that's the case. I don't want people out there when they're driving down the road listening to the show.
Especially with those new fines for everything.
Yes, exactly. It's just easy to hop on to Supertalk 1270 or thetechranch.com and listen to the show again. So easy to do that. So,
at your leisure.
Exactly. Actually, if you have a podcast player, you can just subscribe to us.
Now, how does that work?
So you just subscribe. You just go to thetechranch.com and subscribe. Okay. And when we post it up on the Tech Ranch, you'll get a notification that it's just sitting there waiting for you to listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty easy.
But you make it sound like you say podcast player, and immediately in my mind I think of some portable device.
Oh, yeah.
On which you actually play the podcast.
Yeah, you just need to have it on your phone,
okay.
or you can actually have it on your computer as well and just subscribe to it. And,
it's software.
Yeah, it's just easy. And if you have a, an Apple phone, an iPhone, it really is Monday, isn't it,
An
Jim?
iPhone, a smartphone, or your ever-loving Droid.
That's right. You can subscribe and just get those things to come to you. So very, very easy to do. So we're talking a little bit about divorce today, and on the phone with us from Partis.com, Krista Andrews. Krista, how you doing?
Hey, good. Thank you. How are you?
Doing fine as well. You and I had the opportunity to visit a couple of weeks ago. You presented at 1 Million Cups in Fargo, North Dakota. And I thought your premise for your software is very, very unique, so we thought we'd have you on the show today.
Perfect. We're excited about it, too.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us maybe, before we get into the app itself, maybe some of the pain points that you've seen with the process of people going through divorce.
Sure. Well, I've been practicing family law for about 20 years, and I found there were a lot of repeat questions, frustrations, and just angst, of course, with the process, notwithstanding the fact that people are going through, obviously, a very emotional time. I thought there were things that we as a system could probably do a little bit better, or as attorneys, and just started kind of thinking about some of those things that we could do to help folks that are going through the process. One of those being just giving them a little bit more control over the tools and the resources that are available to attorneys but aren't available to clients. I didn't want to take attorneys out of the loop. They have a very valuable piece in the process, but there's a large piece where the clients know, for example, their financials much better than the attorneys know. But because the clients didn't have access to the software that allowed them to input that data, it all fell with the attorneys to do that essentially data entry piece. So wanted to create software that allowed clients, while still collaborating with attorneys and others, to just be more involved in that process. I think by giving them a little bit more control and involvement in the process, it just helped them move forward better, make better decisions, and, of course, reduce some of their attorney's fees as well.
So, speaking of that right away, so how much do you think this piece of software, this app, actually saves people going through the divorce process?
It's hard. I think it's going to be a hard thing to say exactly, of course, how much it saves. I just anecdotally know, as an attorney, if folks that have a pretty average amount of assets and debts involved in their divorce are using the software, and if they're doing the data entry and they're working on the allocation of assets and debts, I would say easily $1,000 to a couple $1,000 by them doing more of the data entry and some of that work themselves quite easily.
And I would imagine that assets and debts change quite a bit during the divorce process, right? So is this just an easy way for them to keep up with that?
Yes, and that was, again, part of the frustration that I had as an attorney is right now I have software that's loaded onto my firm server. So when a client comes to me with all their financials, either I or my legal assistant do the data entry. The cloud-based software that we created allows the client to do that if they want, and if their attorney wants or allows them to do that. I can still see what they've inputted because it's cloud-based and we're securely linked on that particular case. So if they enter in all their assets and debts and something changes, because it can be a 1 month or a 1 year plus process, credit card debts go up. They may pay off balances of something else. They're able to update that information. And by them being able to do that, again, it makes my job easier because I'm not always having to do the data entry, but it also saves them the cost by not having to email me or call me and say, okay, now I paid off a credit card debt, or now this balance has increased. So it allows them to do that data entry. It also allows them to play around with proposals if they want to start allocating. If I take this retirement account and my spouse takes this credit card account and I take this vehicle, they can see exactly where the split would be if they allocated in that way, and they can play around with different options of allocation.
So can you give us maybe some real-world examples of couples that you have worked with that maybe your software has made this process easier for them?
Sure. I'll give you two. For example, I had one client that I sent a link to Partis to input her financial information, and within a day or two, she probably had 100 assets included in the software. She had notations on maybe where she got the assets from or just notes that she wanted me to be aware of. And the software also allows clients or attorneys to attach a document to support that value, which is huge because now when you see that there's a mortgage balance of $357,000, you don't have to dig through your paper file to find that supporting document.
Okay.
They can attach that document to see exactly where they got those numbers from, or a Kelly Blue Book, or an appraisal. So the documents can be attached, and the client can do that. So I had a client that within a couple of days stayed home and inputted all this data, and it sped up the process because I didn't have to take the time digging through the file to do that data entry. So that's one example. Another example is I had a client this weekend who logged into Pardis, and she actually was sitting at home with her soon-to-be ex, and they were updating the information on Pardis together, and they mutually agreed on the asset values and the allocation, and then she asked that I publish that proposal to the opposing attorney so that we were all on the same page. But by the clients having access to that software, it allowed them to do a portion of the negotiation and the settlement. Again, if the attorneys agree or allow them, or if they're unrepresented, they're able to do that on their own.
Very, very interesting. So you have to be working with an attorney to have access to the software, correct?
Right now, yes, because when we started rolling out the software, we wanted it to be just the attorney version to get attorneys using it, testing it, see how it works. We will be rolling out just a client version eventually, too, so that if clients are not represented or parties are not represented, they can sign up for the software and they can input all their information and negotiate electronically as well.
Interesting. So right now, let's say you're going through a divorce, or you know somebody who's going through a divorce. I mean, could you actually go in and ask your attorney to sign up to your network so that they could have Pardis as part of their process?
Yes, absolutely. And right now we're not charging. We just we're in that kind of testing phase. We're getting all the little bumps worked out. It's been going well. We're starting to roll it out more nationally now. But yes, they could just go in. Any attorney can sign up and just log into Pardis and have their clients start inputting the information.
And can you give us the website URL?
Yes, it's www.pardus.com.
Amazing. So, Pardus, yes, yeah. That actually, as you read that and think about it, it makes sense now, doesn't it?
Not party.
Part.
I don't suppose it would be to some people.
Not usually a party, but
never mind.
Pardus, yes.
Let me ask a question, just totally out of left field, if I may. Do you get a lot of criticism from people who think that you're doing the wrong thing in making divorce an easier, more streamlined process? There are people, I am not among them, who think that divorce is too easy to get in this society. How do you react to that?
To answer your first question, I have not received any feedback on that. I always see myself as not being an advocate for divorce. Even though I'm a divorce attorney, I try to help parties get to that next phase in their life once they've decided that this is the route that they want to go. There has been legislation, I know even in North Dakota and nationally, to try to require that parties attend counseling first or have a waiting period before they're allowed to get a divorce, and at least in North Dakota that has not went through. That's just the policy, I guess, right now, that people don't think that there should have to be a required waiting period.
Well, there has been there has been like a cooling off period in a lot of states, and it's been there. When I got divorced from my first marriage in 1987, in the state where I was divorced, there was a 30-day appeal period, which is, I suppose, along the lines of what you're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
And North Dakota does not have that. Neither does Minnesota. But other states have some variation of that.
We're all adults here. Let's work it out for ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
Back to the tech.
Well, I was just okay. So, how many attorneys do you have using this right now, Krista?
Oh, we started rolling it out maybe a month or two ago, and we're up to about 100 attorneys.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And what kind of feedback have you had from them?
Very, very positive. The attorneys, if they want, some I think just want to make sure that the clients are inputting the information accurately or have the correct information in there. So some may be a little bit more hesitant to allow the clients to do all of that, but I would say most are very willing to allow the client to do that piece. The clients need to get us their financials anyway, so it's just a matter of really doing that data entry. And again, the attorneys can always supervise and edit what the client has inputted before any kind of a proposal is shared. So the feedback has been wonderful. I think the little bit tougher thing is what I've heard being called a kind of a disruptive technology. It's not something that currently exists, where the clients have a little bit more control in that process. And it's just different, I think, for attorneys to have a new mindset of, okay, now I have this proposal, it's cloud-based, when does the other attorney see that information when we're securely linked on this case? Do they see the information while I'm editing a proposal, or do they only see it when I publish it? You know, what can they send back to me? It's just kind of understanding how the software works. Once they use it and they understand it, then they've really enjoyed working with it, and we've gotten very good feedback.
All right, Krista Andrews, wonderful having you on the show today, everybody. Go to partus.com, partus.com, if you want to know more information about this, or just request it from your attorney. If you're actually involved in a divorce, or you know somebody who is going through a divorce process right now, this could be a big time saver and money saver, and probably helps with the emotional side of this thing too a little bit, I think. So really appreciate you being on the show today, Krista.
Right now, 65.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
So, Jim.
Yeah.
What's net neutrality?
That's a good question. A lot of people are very confused about it. I'm one of them.
You hear about it like almost every day on the news now, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, what in the world is all the big deal about net neutrality?
For a few, about 5 years at least.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I know sometimes it kind of rears its ugly head, and you hear it becomes big news for a while.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are really confused by net neutrality. So we're going to actually talk about it.
Do tell.
And you'll figure this out. So how would you feel if you're on your cell phone and you have carrier X, and I have carrier Y, and because I have carrier Y, you can't call me?
Well, that's ridiculous.
Because carrier X decides that, we don't want to support those guys over there, so we're not going to allow any phone calls to go through them.
Right.
That's what net neutrality is. So basically
giving brand X a right not to do business with brand Y.
Net neutrality basically says that you have to do business with everybody.
Okay.
You can't slow down a connection to a competitor's website. You can't do any of this stuff. Everything has to be the same. Okay. So, and basically, when you think about it, a website is a series of numbers, not unlike a phone number. I mean, I know you go to www.supertalk1270.com, right?
Right.
But the actual URL to that is like 192.384.285.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a big long phone number is what it looks like.
Yeah,
and
I think doesn't it like show up in a very small print at the bottom
yes,
of the screen?
Yes, it does, as a matter of fact. So, that is actually kind of a, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of a redirect or a way to rename a bunch of series of numbers on it so that because people aren't going to remember these big long numbers,
right?
But they'll remember eBay or Amazon or whatever, right? So that's the whole point of that. So it basically, so if you're being host, or if your internet service provider doesn't like the internet here in North Dakota, doesn't like the internet service provider in Washington State, for example.
Okay.
They can just say if we didn't have net neutrality, they could just block all of the websites that service provider maybe has through their system in Washington State.
Now, we talk provider. We talking like AT&T, Verizon,
That's
Sprint,
correct.
and so on?
All of them.
Right.
Anybody who has anything to do with the internet at all. So, and a lot of it is, we're talking about the phone thing. It's very prominent there as well because most systems now are using voice or, our voice over internet protocol or VoIP.
Yeah.
And almost all of our phones, even our cell phones,
yeah,
are basically going to a tower, and then those calls are being redirected through the internet. So, I mean, this doesn't just impact just websites. This impacts credit card processing. This impacts the ability for you to watch Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these other things. Because, if Amazon went into the service provider area, or maybe Netflix decides that they're going to partner with AT&T, right?
Yeah.
And then Amazon decides to partner with Verizon.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, these two companies are competing against each other in those different areas. And one of them could say, you know what? We're not going to provide service to Netflix anymore here because
you would think,
Amazon is our partner.
You would think, and maybe it's naive, maybe I'm missing a point here somewhere, but you would think it would be in everybody's best interest to kind of work that out to the mutual benefit.
So
now I can see where maybe one giant mega corporation, we'll call it Brand X.
Yep.
We won't use one of the real names.
Right.
Maybe if Brand X has a real strong toehold on the market as it is, and they want to force a kind of monopoly situation, I can see them trying it.
Well, and you could actually make the argument. So right now we have net neutrality for the most part. I mean, there are some little
enforced by law.
Enforced by law.
All right.
Right. But there are entities that are trying to eat away at this a little bit. Okay. So one example would be a pay for play scenario. Okay. Where you're talking about somebody who controls a massive amount of the internet realm.
Right.
Okay. And they say, well, if you want to be part of our network, then you have to pay us 50 cents a month per subscriber that you're sending to us.
Yeah, there are parts of the country that are like that, right? Where one company pretty much holds the key to the lion's share of the
Absolutely.
business.
We're probably in one of them ourselves.
Okay.
I mean, not that the internet service provider that we have here is a fair player. I mean, they really are, actually, considering that they have, I would say, a very monopolistic approach. Or not approach, but they have they just have the best service. So because of that, they control most of the service in the area.
Right.
And we don't have competing choices in that realm. That, I think, is going to change in the next year or two. But right now, that's how it is here, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, they could actually say that in order for us to view a website in Washington, D.C., and maybe they're right-leaning. On
maybe
a political
thing,
and they don't want all the left-leaning stuff to be on their network, so they could blacklist those websites. They could do all kinds of stuff, right? So this means that the internet is open to everybody. This doesn't mean that if you're in China that it's open to everybody, you may not have access to everything that's in China because the Chinese government says that you can't.
Yeah.
But here, at least in the United States, we have equal access to everything that's available, and that's what net neutrality is all about.
I see.
So, and there's nobody in there that's trying to charge extra for it, or because one has a huge monopoly over here, and you got the little telco in Beulah, North Dakota that can't compete with that. It doesn't matter. Everybody has the same exact opportunity to access information.
Now, by its very name, you're saying basically the net should be neutral. It should be equally fair to everybody.
That's the whole point.
Yet there are people, smart people, who are against it.
Absolutely.
What is their case against net neutrality?
There's a lot. I mean, when you can get into the political realm quite a bit. You can be, advocacy for one position or another. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good scenario here without getting too controversial, but
Brand X and Brand Y.
I guess you could say that. So you don't agree with that person's or that company's philosophy, so we're just not going to allow you to have access to it, or we're going to make it so slow that it'll drive you nuts, and you just won't go to that website anymore because the site is way too slow for you to load, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about, and there are people that are going to try to whittle away, just like they try to whittle away at our Constitution. It's kind of the same scenario. It's about, I know better than you the information that you should have. I'm just saying. I mean, so I guess a great example might be the religious sector versus pornography.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying one is right over the other. I'm just saying that because we have net neutrality, all this information is available to you. So if you want to go to one website and want to go to another, it doesn't matter. But there might be, one side or the other that's trying to shut down the other side's view.
So if the CEO of Brand X company wakes up one morning and he's born again and he decides he's going to ban all the quote-unquote adult websites on his service.
That's correct.
But there are people who would say, and I'm not sure where I stand on this. I can see both sides of it to an extent. But there are people who would say, well, if it's a privately owned company, then the First Amendment comes into play. You don't want the government dictating what a company can and cannot allow in terms of content.
That is a very valid point, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think so think of it this way. Think of it as an interstate.
Okay.
And it really is, and I mean, it's no different than an interstate. It's the interstate of the internet.
Right.
I mean, that's basically how it is. So if I'm driving down the interstate, I want to have access to the town of Jamestown, and I want to pull off and have a hamburger there, right? And I have that right to do that. I have that right to support that business. I have that right to stop in. I have the right to pull off the road. I think that's kind of how you have to treat the information superhighway. That's how I see it. But I
like a piece of infrastructure.
But that's exactly right.
Okay.
You can't view it as just a company when it comes to this.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing you're talking about really held true back when telephony was starting to become a big deal. You know, because those companies could have restricted access to other companies that they were basically competing against.
Yeah.
And still do today. But because of certain laws that were put into place or whatever, that it basically was a net neutrality, maybe a phone neutrality type of thing. Or
when you and I were kids, the phone company was basically a monopoly.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, and they broke it apart, and yeah. So it's a very interesting topic, and I can see all sides of it. As a person who's in business,
right,
I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I should be able to make those calls, but at the same time, you know, as a person in business, I also have regulatory things that I have to be concerned with. This radio station has regulatory concerns.
Oh, you're damn right we do.
So that's just, and I hate to use this because I hate this saying, but it's part of doing business, right? I hate when especially government officials say this to me as a business owner. Oh, it's just part of doing business.
It's part of,
Give me $1 million because it's just part of doing business here. Are you crazy? You know, but at the same time, some of these things it's just a part of doing business.
Well, it's the way of the world.
Yep. So you have to be, you know, since that's level on the one side, you have to compete, you know, with your competitors by offering better service, by whatever you can do, because the offering that you have on the other side is exactly the same.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to do business with a company that didn't allow me those other alternative services.
I agree. Absolutely.
And in a perfect world, of course, you'd have an equal access to all the different companies, and you could decide for yourself.
Yep.
Where the rub comes in, I think, is the fact that we don't have that perfect equal access, at least not yet we don't. There's still a lot of places where brand Y doesn't even exist as an available source.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can make there are still areas in our part of the world here that just have dial-up as just the only option they have for internet access, you know. So you're absolutely right about all that. Those old days. But we occasionally get somebody that walks in our computer shop that's the only choice they have outside of satellite, and satellite isn't that fast yet either with what they have. So.
Yeah.
All right, Ray, we will continue our conversation, probably not on net neutrality after we come back, but we have some other interesting topics as well.
Okay.
All right.
Right now, 70.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube. supertalk1270.com.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
So, Jim, have you ever had an opportunity to drive from like Las Vegas to Salt Lake City? It's about a 400-mile drive there, right through the desert.
That specific stretch of road, no.
Okay. So I had that opportunity last week, and there was a pretty good thunderstorm. Do you know where St. George is at? St. George, Utah?
St. George is a very famous city. There was an incident in St. George in the 50s where one of the atomic bomb tests in Nevada, the fallout blew over St. George, and they had a big scare about that.
I didn't know that.
It didn't turn out to be a serious problem, but they had like a shelter-in-place kind of thing where they had to tell everybody to stay in your houses for like 6 to 12 hours until this fallout blew over.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'll have to investigate that a little bit more. It's a beautiful part of the country.
I know. Really I'm familiar with St. George's because of that story.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up now. This might make more sense. No, maybe not. I'm just kidding. But there was a significant thunderstorm that was going on between St. George and Las Vegas as I was driving through. And there's some summits that you have to go over, and it's kind of a windy part of. In fact, you go through a little bit of a canyon and then up into a summit and things. And I've never seen lightning like that before.
What kind of lightning?
So it was. You know, you have the cloud to ground lightning, right? And there was some of that going on. And then you have the stuff that's huge across the sky, right?
The horizontal lightning.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
This was short lightning. It was like small static charges that were just like crackling across the sky.
Okay.
And it wasn't just a little bit. This went on for a significant amount of time, like 30 to 45 minutes, I've seen this kind of crackling static electricity type of thing just dancing around in the clouds. I have no explanation for it. And I was just, during the break here, I was trying to look it up real quick because I wanted to do that. And I was seeing if there was other instances. I'll have to look and see if there's maybe somebody's posted something before. Because I can't imagine I'm the only person who's ever seen this.
Well, I'll have to talk to Paul Trombley maybe in the Weather Eye people.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's a phenomenon they're familiar with.
I'm sure. And I was just wondering, though, because I was, it was... just maybe the area that I'm in at that time, because there's some mountains in the area or whatever, if that causes that type of static, kind of crackly type of look in the sky. I don't know. It was just kind of weird.
There's a little pocket in Oklahoma, it's off the interstate, where they have, it's called spook light. And they don't know if it's static electricity. Now, in this case, it's on the ground.
Okay.
You drive by this field and you look over and you see this. It looks like this static electricity dancing around through the forest. And people are wondering if that's, again, some kind of St. Elmo's fire phenomenon or the static electricity, like I say. Maybe it's related to that. I don't know.
And it's called spook light.
Spook light, yeah.
So there's another phenomena very similar to that then in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah. I mean, people actually will drive out in the summertime just to sit there and watch it.
Well, I've actually drove out to the one in the UP.
Right.
And it's by a town called Bruce Crossing. Okay. And you go a few miles to the south of it, and there's this light that comes through the forest at night too, and there are some. The one night I was there was like 50 people there to watch this phenomena that's going on. So that's interesting, very interesting. I didn't realize there were other parts of the country that had that.
Oh
as
yes,
well. So, very cool. So, Kik, are you familiar with the app Kik?
I've heard of it. Refresh my memory.
KIK. So it's like a messenger for teenagers on your phone. So it's very popular with teenagers. And this is probably more of a warning than anything else. But if your kids are using Kik, it's also the number one way that sexual predators are chasing after your children. So it's something that I think you need to be aware of. And Kik's been around since I think 2009. I mean, they're a great company and it's a great service. I just think that as a parent, you need to be aware of that sexual predators are using this app.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm sure they're using a lot of apps. I'm sure they're using all the social media.
But they did an investigative report on this.
Yeah.
And a high number of people who have been arrested have this app on their phone. And again, it's designed for teenagers. So
they register under a false identity?
They do, yeah. So just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
They're a Canadian company. They have over 300 million users that use this worldwide. So just be aware of that. The app is called Kik, K-I-K. And, maybe do your parental responsibility and look at their phone or their smart device and just see if they're using Kik on there. And just make sure that your kids understand that they may not be talking to teenagers sometimes.
Exactly.
So, yeah. iTranslate. Are you familiar with these guys?
iTranslate.
It does exactly what you think it does.
Okay, yeah, just something in German, it'll translate to the English.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So they've had a significant update to their translation metrics over the last week or two.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a lot faster. So how it works is when you talk, you tell it to two languages. So if you're German and I'm English, right?
Yeah.
I select those two languages. When I talk, I push the tab. And then I talk, and then I let go of it, and then it translates it to German. And then, Jim, when you talk, you press the tab, and then you talk, and then it'll translate it back to English.
Now, a lot of social media services already have a version of that.
They do, actually.
And YouTube has a version of that.
Yeah, and in fact, the Facebook version, by the way, is it's funny you bring that up, is totally AI now.
Okay.
It's all artificial intelligence now. 100% of it is artificial intelligence. It's kind of crazy, actually. And so I was talking about this to the kids over the weekend at drone camp about quantum computers. Have we talked about quantum yet? I don't think we have.
No.
So I'm going to give you a quick little lesson, and the reason for this is because they're just going to start coming out pretty shortly. So a quantum computer is measured, or quantum in particular is measured in a unit called qubits. Qubits, I think.
Like in the Bible?
maybe like in the Bible.
You know, like Noah built the ark according to so many cubits or whatever.
Was it spelled? I don't think it was spelled Q though. It was Cubit.
Oh yeah, it was Cub. Yeah. Supposedly it's like the tip of your elbow to your middle finger or something like that.
That's correct. So a cubit is QU.
Okay, different thing.
Yep. And anyway, your laptop right now would be measured in about 10 to 20 qubits. Okay, the world's fastest computer would be measured at about 50 qubits. Okay. Now, quantum computers have been around for a while, but they only can operate around absolute zero. And so it's not real practical to have a quantum computer in your office.
You mean the temperature absolute zero?
The temperature absolute zero.
Really?
How many jackets would you have to wear to work in that environment, right?
Quite a few.
So anyway,
typical North Dakota winter.
There you go. Today's temperature, we're 1 degree off absolute zero.
Wires high, 2 degrees above absolute zero.
That would be funny. Anyway, now they've broken that, so now they're able to start running quantum computers at room temperature.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the world's fastest computer would be measured at about 50 qubits. In 4 to 5 years, they figure that as quantum computers come out, that the slowest quantum computer will be 1 million qubits.
Holy mother of pearl.
To 10 million qubits. So we're talking...
Now this is a measure of speed, right?
Measure of speed. So your processor speed that is now at 50 qubits is going to be 1 million qubits to 10 million qubits. So we're talking, what's that, 200,000 to 500,000 times faster.
Oh, wow.
What does that do for AI?
I mean, how much faster measurably can the human mind follow along?
Well, I think we're at that point now. I always look at computer speed, right, as fast as I can type. If it can keep up with my typing skill, which is 13 words a minute because I peck with 2 fingers, right?
Now, if you're in NASA, I suppose I could see where they would need these complicated calculations done in the blink of an eye like that. For the average Joe like you or me, is there really a function for that?
Well, I think we're going to, as we move forward, we'll find functions for that. But, I mean, even think about autonomous vehicles. Think about medicine. Think about nanites. We talk about nanites quite a bit on here, right? So because you can take and put supercomputer power in such a small space now, because you don't need a lot of quantum here to make a nanite that's actually pretty smart, right?
You know, I think you got a very good point there. If you make the technology capable of doing certain things, people will find a way to use it.
I agree. And I think
we should name that. We should call it Walsh's Law.
Okay.
Okay. Or Marlo. Marlo and Walsh's Law.
You so say that again. Walsh's Law.
Walsh's Law
is. You can't even remember what you just said, right?
The wording is a little fuzzy. You know, some people are great with words, and then you got guys like me.
Yeah.
And look what I do for a living, right?
You know, the good thing is that this is being recorded so that we can listen back, and then we'll state Walsh's Law later. So, yeah, that's funny, actually.
For every advance in technology, there is someone who can find a new way to exploit it.
There you go. There you go. So, and that's
I'll work on it.
Correct. Okay, you do that. I expect that to be reported back next week, the new Walsh's Law.
Thank you.
So, quantum computers. I have no idea why we got to quantum computers, but I just had to throw that out there. Treble FM. Treble, TREBLE.FM, is a social media platform for musicians.
Oh, okay.
So if you're a musician, a songwriter, producer, just launched a couple days ago. Artists can build a profile, and you can recruit band members and songwriters and all that stuff.
I am a very bad guitar player.
Well, you should be right on there then.
Okay,
Treble.fm, because I'm sure there's a band out there looking for a very bad guitar player.
I'm sure they are.
Yes.
Maybe a punk band or something.
Yes. Honeydew, HONEYDUE, Honeydew, mobile app that aims to reduce money-related arguments between couples.
I love it.
So I think that's the number one thing we argue about anyway, right, Jim?
Yeah, I don't think the lady with the divorce app would like that.
She probably wouldn't be very excited about that. Yeah. So anyway, it's been a great show, Jim. Thanks for the ride.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.